the footprints, they were all over the place.
Great.
Wow.
That
Yep.
makes me happy.
Yep. And I love these flowers.
Oh, thank you.
And I see that I see the chief has his candles going. I hope he has his aromatherapy and all of that stuff.
To calm them
Everything's
down.
smooth,
That's
nice
it.
and smooth.
Right,
Yep,
right,
yep.
right.
When I was battalion chief, I used to just chew on a cigar, have country and western music, and the candles going, and everyone knew not to talk to me.
It's real good to know about you, Roy. Okay,
Okay.
so now we're gonna mute you.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
I'll mute myself. I'm muted.
Okay, so it is 6:32 by my reckoning. So I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:32 on the night of February 4th, 2021. So let's begin by pledging allegiance. If everybody doesn't mind standing, and I think Mike Jetty is going to be holding a flag for us.
Uh-huh.
That's right. I'll say something and see if I
I
come
pledge
forward.
allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. Okay, now that the meeting is called to order, I am going to pass this over to our town moderator, Mike Jetty.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Can everybody hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up if
Yep.
it's coming
Yep.
through. Perfect. Thank you for that. So I'm pleased to host this meeting, and we're going to just follow right through the warrant as it's been drafted by the select board. We'll present it to everybody tonight, and we'll take each article one by one. And then after each one, we'll pause and take an opportunity for folks to ask questions. I have not moderated too many online forums, but you know, if you can just sort of get our attention, we'll make sure I'll keep a running list, and we'll be sure that everybody's able to ask questions on each article before we move on to the next one. So I just want to start by reviewing warrant article number 1. So the first item on the warrant, as always, is the election of officers, and then the calling of the annual meeting. So just so everybody is aware, because of the pandemic conditions, we have asked that we proceed with voting on the regular traditional voting day, which is Tuesday, the 9th day of March. We will open the polls at 10 o'clock in the morning at the town hall, and we're going to follow the same procedures that we have followed with both the New Hampshire primary in September and then the general election in November. So we'll ask that folks who want to come in to vote in person do so wearing masks, and we'll have all the stations set up as we did in the previous 2 elections. And then, as always, absentee balloting will be available to folks. And we will be pre-processing absentee ballots in the same format that we did last year. So the legislature has granted us the ability to continue with that process. It really worked very smooth. And I think everybody who either voted by absentee or voted in person came to appreciate that that we've got this. So I know that Sarah Charlesma, as the supervisor of the checklist, is on here tonight. And our town clerk, Michelle Derby, is here also. And together with Nancy Webster, we'll make sure that everything runs smoothly, just as it did in the previous 2 elections. So again, that will occur on Tuesday, the 9th day of March. And then what we will do is, instead of having the business meeting immediately following on Saturday, we are posting that the date will be on Saturday, April 17th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And let me explain that. Basically, we're proposing to have the meeting outdoors behind the Webster Elementary School. Anybody who's looked at the playground area inside the U will know that that's a nice space for us to be physically distanced, and that we'll be able to hold town meeting there with masks and just asking people to bring their own chairs to that meeting. So we do have, and again, that is on Saturday, the 17th of April, and that's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The later start will allow us a chance for it to warm up a little bit. We're optimistic that it's going to be one of those beautiful April days. and that we'll be able to have a nice outdoor meeting take place there. We are posting a rain date of Saturday, May 8th. And so by announcing those 2 dates in advance, people can plan for those. And hopefully we won't have to use the rain date, or I guess it could be a snow date, even that late in April. But either way, we're hoping that we can have the meeting on April 17th and be good to go. So please mark your calendars. When you see the warrant, you'll see those dates, as I just explained, posted. And we will have a format outdoors. And I'm sure we'll be able to work through the warrant articles that we have here in a traditional manner, while physically distanced and safely masked, and in an outdoor setting, which is, in our opinion, far superior to trying to cram into town hall. And it would just be really not the best setting to proceed. So,
Mike, I think Dave Collins has a question.
that's perfect. I was just going to pause and see if there were questions.
Very simple question, Mike. So April 17th is the date you're planning on now. What time frame are you going to call it? So is it going to be 24 hours? What are you expecting now to call it? Let's say something, it can't happen. It's got to move to May. What time frame? Is there anything in the state that requires a time frame to change it? Just curious how that's going to work so I can plan.
Yeah, it's a great question, Dave. I believe the statute says that it can be called up to 2 hours prior to it starting. But, I've gotten pretty good about monitoring the weather in my role as a school superintendent. So we'll be doing the same thing, and we'll know if it's going to be something that we can pull off outdoors or if we have to postpone. So we'll give people as much forewarning. I mean, obviously, if there's a storm coming up the coast and it's pretty obvious it's going to be a washout, we'll call it as far in advance as we can.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Watch the website. Russ is pretty good about keeping things up to date. And before we go, Mike, before we go one step further, I wanted to point out that Dana Hadley, if any of you have not met our new town administrator, there he is in living color. Hadley.
Thank you.
Yes, so you're going to be hearing a bit from him later on. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. Are there any other questions on the election or the actual business meeting on Saturday, the 17th of April? Perfect. So what we'll do is we'll move on to warrant article 2. I will read it. So warrant article 2 reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,623,498 for general municipal operations. This article does not include appropriations contained in special or individual articles addressed separately. And explaining this is the general budget warrant article, and explaining it for everybody tonight is Selectman Dave Hemingway. Dave?
Howdy. So I'm going to go ahead and run down it. To note, the budget has been available on the website, and some of you have gotten that link in various places from me and others. There have been some minor updates to it but only in the calculations to make sure they actually reflect what's really there. None of the other numbers have been affected. With that being said, I'll dive into it, and it'll take me a couple minutes here to go through the overview, and then happy to take more questions on more details. Overall, the operating budget is up 4.1%, but the total expected outlay of the town is actually down 0.1%, thanks to an almost 10% reduction in warrant article expenditures. You'll hear more on that from others later. Unfortunately, we also expect reduced revenue in large part due to reductions from the state block grant and meals and rooms tax, so don't expect your tax payments to drop as a result. For the operating budget, the good news first. We've reduced the executive spending despite increases in personnel costs, driven mainly by a reduction in technology line item requirements, thanks to the Technology Expendable Trust Fund. Election-related items are less thanks to this not being a presidential election year. The cemetery and parks recreation requirements are also down after completion of repairs in prior years and less need for supplies. Long-term debt is down significantly due to the solar array loan now being paid off. The highway block grant is also down, but this is a dollar-for-dollar match with the revenue from it, so will not affect the actual tax outlay. Department budget amounts did not change for financial and personal administration, emergency management, public safety, solid waste disposal, the library, and other programs, commissions, and committees with smaller operating budgets. Of particular note, highways and streets has also remained the same, with additional road work this year expected to come from capital reserve and expendable trust funds that the town has already been building up for those projects. For significant increases, reevaluation and assessment is up due to having to hire a utility assessor, which wasn't accounted for when discussing the savings of the new assessing company in prior years. Insurance is up due to increased plan prices and an increase in covered individuals due to family plans and additional employees. Police is up due to wages and having to account for the police cruiser. More on this in a moment. Legal is up mainly due to ongoing and expected legal challenges. Ambulance and fire are up due to the cost of shared services going up, such as the Hopkinton ambulance and the We Are Responding. For less impactful increases, continued and expected legal review of ordinance, such as the Wetlands Protection Ordinance, along with building lot issues, also drive up the planning and zoning budget. Government buildings increases are driven by wages, expected repairs, and increases in costs for postage, propane, and telephone services. Code enforcement is up slightly as we expect to have a code enforcement officer this year. Health and welfare are both up slightly due to increased time allotments being required by personnel. In total, that 4.1% increase in the operating budget equates to about $64,000 of increase. However, it is important to note that the police budget includes a police cruiser purchase that won't actually impact the tax rate. That's due to one of our police cruisers unfortunately being totaled in an accident not that long ago. Thankfully, everybody's doing okay. The insurance coverage doesn't directly pay the manufacturer or to buy a new cruiser, but instead that will go into our revenue. So we must show that as an expense in the budget, but without that, because it is perfectly offset in the revenue side, the operating budget would have only increased slightly over 2%. And so that is the overview of the budget. And so if there are questions, please let us know. I don't happen to see any. I may not be seeing every person on here, but I don't happen to see any.
Michelle, possibly? I see a hand underneath Michelle.
I do not, but if she is, then please.
Michelle?
She's muted.
She should be able to unmute if she wanted to ask a question. I set it up so that she could.
Russ, does the hand that I see under Michelle's name indicate that she has a question?
Yes.
I don't have like my hand up.
Yeah, I don't see a hand up for her.
Oh, I'm
Not
looking
me.
right at it. So, okay.
Maybe there's another Michelle.
Dave Collins has a question.
Dave, could you just review it? You did at the beginning. So we know what the budget is. What's the revenue? What decrease do we see in revenue coming into the town? How much? Because that directly impacts taxes, right? The budget is pretty level funded, is what I can see. But we pay for taxes what we don't get from revenue. So if you could just review that portion.
Yeah. So we are expecting, unfortunately, less revenue. The primary drivers for that are going to be less coming from the state for our share of the room and board and meals taxes, and the highway block grant. Both of those go down significantly from the state, which is unfortunate.
Do you know what the dollar amount is and what the percentage of revenue drop is?
Let me find
Approximately. I mean, again, it's not a hard. I know, like rooms and meals, you're guesstimating some of that out a little bit. So,
yeah, one moment, and I will give you the best number that I can.
That's fine.
Which, of course, everything in revenue is a guess, but
yes.
In the meantime, while I look for that, if anyone else has further questions.
I would just jump in here for a minute, Dave, and say that I thought that I read a couple of days ago that Governor Sununu is planning on doing an alteration to the rooms and meals tax that's going to put a greater burden on towns. So the news for towns is not good in that. So
Yeah,
I saw something similar too, and plus just knowing the way the economy has been, the rooms and meals tax is down. There's no question it is, just because
Right.
those restaurants gone out of business as well, many businesses and hospitality.
yeah,
Probably
we
hurting them.
actually got an estimate from the state, which I'm in the process of pulling up, but may take me a moment.
And I know it's a guesstimate too, just curious to know what the number is, the difference that we're guessing at this point.
The estimated difference, so the highway block grant is basically a solid number that they've given us, and that difference is about $2,000. And then the rooms and meals tax, our best guess there is that we're going from about 96,000 and change down to about 80,000.
Thank you.
Sarah, you're muted.
I see you talking and it doesn't say you're muted, but I don't hear you.
Can't hear you.
I thought I heard her earlier.
I heard her. Oh, I heard her laugh.
Hello.
Yes,
There she
it's
is.
working now.
Hey. Thank you. Hello, everybody.
So
I have a question about the town clerk's election stipend line. Was it true that that has not been increased per hour? Her rate per hour for her stipend?
I can't speak for the specific rate. I'm not sure on whether hourly or not, but all of the stipends for the elected officials had all not been increased in this budget.
So none of the election officials.
None of the elected officials had an increase for the stipend. That is correct.
So our raises were all.
So we don't see. Sorry to interrupt there, but we don't see rates. We see overall budget as a stipend, not as a particular rate. And I see you talking, and I don't hear you again.
but I can read your lips when you curse.
Would you know I would do that?
Oh,
Now you hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll sit up closer then. We figure out our stipend budget per hour as a rate per hour. And so our budgets vary year to year. Our stipend budgets, of course, depending on how many elections we have.
Yes. So in the, let me bring up that section of the budget. But in the section there, all of the stuff for election wages for a supervisor, ballot clerks, town clerk, we did not adjust any of we didn't adjust any of that. It was as requested. The only one that I believe was adjusted was the town clerk stipend, which are set and basically the same set hours. And so that was put at no change, just like all of the other elected official positions. So for election wages for the supervisors, the ballot clerks, the town clerk, that since we saw a decrease was based on the number of hours being reduced, we had accepted that. And again, I see you talking and don't hear you. So apparently it's not just where you are.
Back.
Yes, I can hear you again.
Maybe it's just my connection. Explain, I'm sorry, I'm confused as to the change for the town clerk. You're saying that there was a difference in the town clerk stipend.
The town clerk stipend was requested at, let's see here, 37,132, increasing from 36,050, which is what it is currently set to, which would have been an increase of 1,082 or 3%. The select board had decided that it would make sense to either freeze or increase all elected stipends the same percentage. And since, as far as at least I knew, and I believe all of us knew, all other stipends were either requested or generally expected to stay the same, the decision was made to freeze the stipend for the year.
Hi.
And
So we can see we've got a hand from Michelle and Andrew. So Michelle,
No, I
Sarah,
think
and
that's,
Sarah also asked why.
oh, I didn't hear it.
So I think I basically stated that, but the short version of kind of the general consensus for why we wanted to keep all of the stipends the same is during the pandemic, we didn't want to increase any burden on the town for increasing all of the various stipends. And I see Sarah trying to talk again, but since this is Michelle and the town clerk, I want to go ahead and let her talk. Though I guess that's actually Mike's job.
So why don't we have Michelle speak next, and then Andrew is in line, and then we can come back to Sarah if there are follow-up. Michelle, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
I have a lot of things going on in my mind right now. I will try to talk like Dave Collins in a precise and I can't even talk like Dave Collins.
only Dave can.
I am upset by finding out about this today. At no point since I presented my budget did anybody from the board have a conversation with me about this happening. And my other point I want to make, or the question I want to ask, is why only elected officials? I see that employees all have gotten a raise. What makes them more valuable than the roles that we play as elected officials?
So I'll respond partly to this, and then I'll see if one of our other board members wants to chime in. What I'll say is I had expected you to have gotten informed and any further discussions or meetings than scheduled. I found out this afternoon that you hadn't been, so I want to personally apologize for not making sure that change had been communicated to you, since this is a really odd year with the pandemic and everybody's communications being, well, just odd. So I want to just apologize for that up front. For the additional question, there was, I think I'll just go ahead and let the other board members speak first.
I'll jump in here, Michelle. Yes, the lateness of the budget getting out really was the result of Dana and the board coming to a consensus about where we were at financially as a town. And it hasn't been a great year. I mean, the year coming up, and we know how hard the election folks worked. It's not, we certainly know how hard you worked. So, I'm sorry that you were only aware of this now. We've been meeting for the last month or month and a half specifically on the budget. And so those conversations have been very public. But the purpose of this budget hearing is to get feedback. And so, I would like to say that, after the hearing tonight, the board will continue to meet for a while, and this will probably be something that we'll discuss.
Andrew's had his hand up for a bit.
Thank you. So I just think there's, I know the town clerk is elected, but a lot of what it is just a job. And I do find it kind of disrespectful that town employees have had increases, but not the town clerk position. It is not, by and large, it's just providing a service to the community. It's not wheeling and dealing. It's not politics. It's simply processing and, giving advice and, telling people what the rules are and so forth. So I think, it to put them with other town officials, elected officials, rather, to put the town clerk there, it just really doesn't make sense. There's not a lot of logic to that. It's just happenstance that town clerks are elected in New Hampshire, but the functions being done are not at all equivalent to a select board member say. So that's my comment.
Okay. I would also reply here that employees that appear to have gotten a raise may be the new employees that we hired this summer, which would be Russell and Dana. And we hired those employees at a rate that was slightly higher than the people that had those jobs prior, because in fact, those people that had those jobs prior were being underpaid. So in order for our town to attract good people and to keep good people.
But sorry, isn't the same thing true of Michelle? Please.
Yes, and which is why Michelle will reconsider this, Andrew. That's the best that I can do right now.
And so to chime in there, it would, and I see Emmett.
Okay, Emmett, you're next. Well, you're coming up anyway, yeah.
To chime in there about that, part of this is also that, as has been in a conversation previously in town, Michelle's position as town clerk is the only part-time hourly, I should say the only part-time hours that also gets benefits. But
sorry, can I interrupt? Can I just interrupt? I think that's just dredging up things that the town already decided.
Andrew, I'm sorry.
You continue the explanation here.
Yeah, please don't interrupt.
And
I'm sorry.
So regardless of that part of the position, it has commonly been considered by townsfolk that she works full-time at town because she's doing two different jobs and definitely has more hours than a standard full-time job would have. Mm-hmm. As part of the budget process and the wages and the like, she actually, the position that she holds for the police actually had a 14.1% increase in wages. So it is not like we are trying as a board to, sweep Michelle or either of the positions under the rug. I can definitely say that I highly appreciate Michelle in both positions. And I believe the entire board would say the same thing. So please do not think that this is a particular slight or anything of that nature. This was more we believe that as publicly elected officials in this time of crisis, we are the ones, not the employees, that should be making the sacrifices in order to help the budget and the overall good of the town. I believe Chris wanted to say something else, and then I think we've got Emmett.
No, you've covered exactly what I was going to say.
All right, I'm going to turn it back to Mike because he's the moderator, but I think Emmett was next, though I believe Sarah was also waiting.
Yeah, let's give Emmett a chance because he hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll come back to Sarah.
I know times are tough, but I'm responsible for 22 people at the firehouse that are on a stipend, and not one of them have asked for any more. And there's nobody, I'm not taking away from anybody else, but there's nobody that's dedicated like our fire department, and they're there when you're in need. And it's we didn't ask for any raise in our stipend this year, and of a situation.
Thanks, Emmett.
Back to Sarah.
Hear me?
We got you.
Yes.
I don't know if I have anything to say at this point, because you've pretty much made it clear, as is now Emmett, that we apparently don't deserve it. I will say now I'm very emotional. What we had to deal with last year was extraordinary. Was things that, I'm sorry, Emmett, I know you risk your life. Well, maybe not you, but your men risk their lives and women risk their lives when they have a call. I don't usually have to deal with that when I'm having an election. I've never had to deal with that. I've done this for 7 years. Never have I had to worry if I was going to have somebody come in with a gun. We had training on that. That's how real a threat that was. Okay? We had to work. I worked crazy hours, way more than I even put in for. I can't even tell you how many hours I didn't put in for to get this job done and done safely for our community, along with the rest of my group. I don't care if I get a raise or not, but it's really wrong that Michelle is not. Because believe it or not, and no offense, Mike, you understand this, she's still, we could not do this without her. We could not have a single election without her. Ever. She knows way too much, and she does all of the absentee ballots. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry, I know times are tough. We really had a horrible year last year. I don't know that you all understand what it was like to have things be dangerous for us. We're not used to that. And I understand, Emmett, you guys are used to that. Maybe you should put in for a raise. I guess that's all I'm going to say then.
Mike?
Thank you, Sarah. Could I ask the select board? So if you look at the various salary lines in there, so moving away from the elected official question a minute, because I think you're getting feedback from the community on the feelings of that. But can you just walk us through, when I look at, the town administrator, I know you've realigned positions. So for example, the financial administrator has a 575% increase because last year we had combined positions. So just walk us through the flow of how these salaries have landed where they are, because it's been kind of a roller coaster adjustment year. And I think it would help people to understand how the decision-making went into where we landed on overall staffing. Certainly. And salaries.
So the Town administrator salary. Obviously, we had Leslie for a short period. We had vacation payout as well for her. And then we finally managed to hire Dana Hadley as our new town administrator, who has been doing a phenomenal job as far as I'm concerned. And so part of that is that the salaries there are reflective of hired wages, not necessarily as a gigantic increase. The second portion that you're going to see in there, let me find what it's actually listed as.
You mean the assistant town administrator?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I'm not seeing it right in front of my face.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually in a different section. But that is I think it might actually be listed as land use coordinator still.
It is. Mm-hmm.
But it is, that is Russell, who is our new assistant to the town administrator, also doing a really good job. That change is to make, instead of a part-time land use coordinator position, it is encompassing land use coordination. It is encompassing the, there's a phrase for it that's in here, but basically the minute taker for all of the meetings.
Recording secretary.
Recording secretary, thank you. As well as some other items to make that a full-time position. That was part of the reorganization that we did back when we had to rehire for the entire town hall, basically. The financial administration position is an interesting one. You'll notice that that actually goes in concert with the bookkeeper wages. And so financial administration at one point in time was a full-time position that was benefited. Then it went down to being a part-time position with an expectation of a bookkeeper afterwards. Then it became a temporary contract position to take care of emergency items while we were searching for somebody. And then after talking with all of the different people that had come and gone through the position, as well as several other folks, we came to what we believed was a appropriate range and a number of expected hours. And that is how we've budgeted for that financial administrator position, which is a part-time position. You'll notice that there is no bookkeeper wages. All that position was eliminated to go into the newer financial administration budget line items. So you'll notice that the financial administrator was listed at $3,700 for 2020. The bookkeeper was listed at $24,000 for 2020, which would have been $27,700. And our total expectation for the new financial administrator position that's part-time is $25,000. So it is up 575% on that line item, but actually down overall.
And just a follow-up question, do you believe this is the right structure? So this will give stability. You've got the right seats on the bus and they're putting the right people in those seats at this point?
We do believe that.
Yes.
And you know, for anybody who was not aware, gosh, it has been quite a year for the select board, because as long as Bianca was here, at least there were the three of us at that point. But you know, Leslie got another job. Wendy had retired, and then at the end of the summer, Therese retired, and it was a summer of constant interviewing and trying to understand what Webster would need to do in order to compete successfully in the marketplace for good qualified. And you know, it wasn't until the very end of the summer that everything finally came together. And so
there were several weeks where we were meeting almost every single day.
Yeah, it was really something. And I mean, this is what happens in the small towns that I've worked for, you know, that you do what you have to do in order to keep the town running. And I'm proud of the job that we did. And it was hard work, but you know, we got through. And then Bianca got another job, you know, and Dee came in. Thank God for Dee. Thank you again, Dee,
Oh, you're
for
welcome.
helping
I
us
haven't
out
done
there.
much.
So, but I think as you know, as I'm listening to this difficulty around stipends, I think that I know how to solve it, but I don't want to say anything right now. Please, I want to run this idea by the board. So if you all will, and that's what the nature of this hearing tonight is all about. We need to hear where we might have overlooked something, and I might be able to solve this problem. So hang in there with me, and we'll know by the end of the evening tonight whether we've solved the problem or not.
Are there other comments on warrant article number 2, the general budget?
Yes, Mike, this is Tara. I didn't know if I could ask a question.
Please, Tara.
Thank you. I just had a question about not the elected employees, but according to the town personnel policy, have the town employees who are getting raises been given a job review hearing? I know that it's according to the policy, it's supposed to be given on the anniversary of their hire. And I understand that Dana and Russell haven't met that year yet. But I just wanted to see if we were going to continue giving the job review meeting.
That is definitely the expectation, and they have that expectation ahead of them. So I would absolutely expect to be having those review meetings happen before they actually get a raise. That, however, does not affect the budget, because the budget has to be able to handle them getting a raise before we can give it to them.
Right, I understand that, because I had spoken to Dana and he said that would happen for him in August because he was hired in August. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that personnel policy was still valid. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on Article 2? All right, seeing none, I'm just going to make my personal statement, having had the honor of standing next to Michelle for 3 elections now. She's an incredible asset, and so we should make sure that we take care of her, because when a voter comes through and she knows first name, last name, and dog's name, it's pretty darn incredible that we've got somebody with that institutional memory of our town, and it's important that we take care of our folks. So I would just ask that, Chris, I'm confident you've got a solution. So I guess I'm talking to Dave and Dee to hopefully they'll follow suit. So.
And I'd like to add that the elections to me went away. I was so impressed. They were so good. So, and I didn't know how I just have a question. I should know the answer, but I don't. How do the election officials get paid? I mean, like Sarah and stuff, do they get paid by the hour, or do they get a set rate, or?
Yeah, so it is an hourly rate. So you'll notice that, for example, if you look at the moderator salary line, you'll see that it goes down this year because we've gone from a 4 election year that we had last year to I think we have a 1 election year this year. So it's going to ebb and flow depending
right. I
what
understand
the election cycle is. And then last year, as Sarah pointed out, we had countless meetings. I mean, it went smoothly because there was so much planning and conversation and what ifs and walkthroughs that went into that in advance. And Michelle, Sarah, Nancy Webster, and I really met a lot to coordinate that. And we, I didn't.
Well, you could tell,
but
you guys did a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Everybody pulled together townwide.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
And our host of volunteers was incredible also, but there had to be a backbone to figure it out. So thank you, Dee.
Mike, I guess this is Tara again. I guess I do have another question just before you jump.
I would just request that you need to raise your hand, and then
I don't know how. I don't have a picture.
Yeah, go ahead, Tara. We got you.
Because I mean, if you could tell me how to do that, but I don't know how. I just have a question on a lot of the lines where we had a 2020 voted budget, and then zero was spent. So they had the amount remaining was the full budgeted amount. On one of the last pages, it said that the total that was left over was almost $48,000. And so where does that $48,000 go? Because I see we're asking for the same amount that we had budgeted last year. And because it wasn't spent, I was just wondering how does that work? What's the?
Sure. So
Maybe, Dave,
yes.
it might be, maybe to give yourself a break, maybe Dana could answer that.
Sure.
Dana, do you want to tackle this?
I do.
Happy to, but sure, Dana.
Tara, that goes back into the town's unassigned fund balance. So every year, at the end of the year, for items that are not encumbered, return to the fund balance. And I'm happy to say we ended the year with an excess and not a deficit.
Great.
What the fund balance can be used for, the select board can use it to offset the tax rate, or they can put a warrant article on town meeting floor to spend the money out of that. So I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and just to continue on what Dana said there, we did use several of the amounts of that fund to offset taxes this year. So your tax rate was not as high as it really is because we used that. And you will also see a item on here as a contingency fund that comes from that balance. And that will show up at a later point on the warrant.
All right. Anything else on Article 2, the budget? We'll move on to Article 3. So Article 3 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $447,000 to be added to the following established capital reserve funds under RSA 35-1. This is a majority vote warrant article. And the first reserve fund is medical equipment, $6,000, fire department air packs, $20,000, emergency apparatus, $50,000, fire department mobile communications, $10,000, police cruiser, $19,000, highways and roads, $200,000, bridge culvert improvements, $75,000, public safety building, $5,000, town hall improvements, $5,000, town office equipment, $5,000, Webster Hopkinton transfer station, $4,000, fire department dry hydrant repairs, $2,000, reappraisal, $5,000, fire department bunker gear, $2,500, highway equipment, $7,500, police equipment, $6,000, and highway land building fund, $25,000. And if somebody checks that, it should add up to the $447,000 requested. Speaking to this tonight will be Dana, our administrator.
Thank you. The capital reserve amounts that were decided on, the town has an active capital improvement committee that looks at this and receives information from department heads as far as plans coming up for the coming year. They make a recommendation to the select board and the final decision is the select board's. This year, there is an increase in the request of $106,500. Last year, that's compared to last year, you raised $330,500 plus a new capital reserve fund for $10,000 for a total of $340,500. The most significant change is a change in the highways and roads, which actually was a swap from where it was last year from the expendable trust funds. Increase of $2,000 for a police cruiser, $4,500 for police equipment, and again, that some of that has to do with the new police cruiser, and $25,000 for the salt shed project. So it did go up 106,500. And I'll try to answer anything. I will say when I came to Webster, I was very impressed with the number of capital reserve funds. It really does stabilize your tax rate. So my congratulations to the town.
Are there questions for Dana on any of the items? And I'm sure some of the department heads can help.
Well, I just wanted to jump in there really briefly. The $200,000 there, the swap that Dana referred to was a swap with, I think it's Emmett, it's road preservation, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so road preservation had been funded at 200,000, and now road preservation has been knocked back to 100,000, and roads are now receiving the 200,000, which is really where Emmett needs it. Emmett, do you want to respond to that?
Well, that was the CIP that changed all that around because that's what they thought would work. And I guess I can make anything work, so that's going to work. The roads and highways is what I call a reconstruct of a total rebuild of the road, which takes more money than if you're just doing a project here, there, and everywhere, which is the road preservation. So it's how the CIP put it into place, and I went along with it, and it's going to work.
Thank you.
Are there other questions on the various capital reserve funds?
Dave?
What are your plans for doing what projects are you looking at doing at this year? I mean, part of the reason of raising this is, and again, I know we need on roads. I'm just curious to see where you're looking to expend that this year.
Well, last year we were going to do quite a section from Deer Meadow Road from the clubhouse down past Cedar Mill Group down through there, and that wasn't done because of the COVID. They didn't let me do that project. And this year now, the folks from Pillsbury Lake are going to do a construction, a new water pipe through Concord Drive, and they have come to the board and asked them about fixing the road, which that needs to be done. Concord Drive is in need of being repaired, but it wasn't in the plan because of the water pipes under there. But now that Pillsbury Lake's going to do the water pipes, I guess what I've been told is that's going to be the project next summer, was to after they got the water lines replaced, was to rebuild that section of road. It's 1,500 feet long, from the beginning of Concord Drive out to the lake to the end.
Yeah, so that is the primary driver for that fund.
The way I see that was, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that should be like a warrant. I didn't know that they were going to do it this way, but it will work.
So a follow-up related to that, but not, thank you, Emmett, for that. Where are we at with Clothespin Bridge Road, the bridge? What timeline is that on for replacement? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Because
No,
one
in
day
your
that's just
lifetime,
gonna fall
Dave.
apart.
Definitely in your lifetime.
Thanks.
So yes, so the town went to bat at DOT a while back there, and we were moved up a year. So we're looking now at 22, 23.
Okay. Where are we at fund-wise in that fund? I don't have it in front of me because I'm just seeing a capital reserve fund. Again, I'm just looking because that's going to be a costly project. So.
Oh yeah,
And I know there's a match with the state and stuff, but everything's all dependent, right?
Right, so it's the state.
Are we in line? So we're not going to have to like have a major hit? Or are we still going to have a major hit in the budget when we get to that point? Because that's going to be expensive project.
So I'll jump in here
Sure.
briefly to say that that would be the bridges and culverts, which you're going to see. I believe that's in the.
I think I remember about.
Oh yeah, that is here. So bridge and
800,000.
culverts. We're putting 75,000 in it. We're suggesting that, which has been what's traditionally put in that each year. That amount was done to make sure that we would have enough funds for Clothespin Bridge, which we definitely will. And we're also looking to use that same fund for the White Plains Bridge Road. So that is also expected to pull out of that actually this year. And then once that's done, we'll also be looking at the other bridges that are coming up to be needing a replacement or major repair shortly after. So that's why the fund continues to run as it is, but we do have an appropriate amount of money in the fund for that.
Dana, do you happen to know how much money is in that account?
Yes, I do. $711,508.
So Dave,
Yep. So you feel you have enough right now. So if you do White Plains this year, and within what, 2 years potentially you do Clothespin Bridge Road, you'll have sufficient funds for the match. You know, because it's like was it like an 80-20 match or something from the state. I don't remember the.
yeah, something like that. State Bridge Aid Program.
Again, I'm just making sure. What I'm just looking is down the road, so I know we're saving for it. But should I be planning to look at a big hit? Because you know, when you bid these things out, who knows what the cost is going to be? That's the other problem, right? It's a guesstimate until you bid these projects out. So, because I would assume those type projects are probably going to be bid out to like a bridge contractor to do it. I don't know if White Plains, Emmett, is that you talked about that? Is that going to be bid out to Emmett, or would that be?
No, we have a contract with VHB.
Okay, which they're just the engineering firm, right? But so they'll basically competitive bid it. Is that what you're looking at?
I guess so. Yes.
Are you talking about the White Plains Road Bridge?
No.
There's two different ones. There's White Plains, which has Right Angle Engineering for the engineering company. And there is Clothespin Bridge, which has VHB as the engineering company. Okay. And then the construction project after is different than that. But the funds are being set aside based on the estimates by the engineers from what they've been seeing for current bids.
But yeah, it's still an unknown. You get a spike in steel, for example, or, you know, when you're looking at Clothespin Bridge Road, you could be looking at big cost. Again, I'm just trying to make sure that prepping down the road, because again, that's the issue we had a few years ago when Clothespin Bridge Road came, there were numbers all over the place. So again, I just want to make sure we're putting up aside and we're preparing for that, because that's going to be the costly project. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, barring any really weird, like way out of the ballpark numbers, we are expecting that we will be set for that as long as we continue to fund in this manner.
Any last questions on the capital reserve funds?
Steve, I wondered whether Steve would want to say anything about the police cruiser and explain to folks how.
I can do that. So we had an accident with the police cruiser. Thank God it was no injuries, and it was not deemed our fault, which was good. Primex did pay for our vehicle. We're going to collect the deductible from the other insurance company, and Primex is actually going to collect that for us. The problem we ran into is we can't purchase another vehicle similar to the one we have. The one we have that got totaled was a 2018. So the 2020 or 21 cruisers are built differently. They're 10 inches wider. The curvature on the inside is different. So none of the equipment will fit a 2020 or a 2021 cruiser. So we're looking at about an $8,000 expense to outfit the inside of the cruiser and the outside. Luckily, Primex has said that they will pick up 90% of the tab for that cost. So that'll be an offset in the budget. So that's a real hit for us. Thank God that they're gonna pick that up. And we've already picked up a 2021 cruiser and we have it now. It'll be 6 weeks before we get all the equipment to fill it.
Thank you, Chief. And glad that in all things considered, it's a good story.
All things considered, it's good. I'm looking down the road. So if you look down the road, as Dave said, let's look down the road to see where we're going to be. I realistically can see that our next cruiser that we purchase, we'll be able to skip the year after that. We won't need one because we'll have 3 cars that'll be almost new. So we'll be able to skip a cruiser for a year. So that'll save us a good chunk of money.
Anything else on the capital reserves? Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to Article 4. Article 4 is related to expendable trust funds, which is a different part of the RSA, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $138,000 to be added to the following established expendable trust funds per RSA 31:10A. Road preservation, $100,000. Technology fund, $10,000. Forest fire, $2,000. Fire department equipment, $5,000. Highway, $5,000. Legal for the town of Webster, $6,000. Compensated absences, $2,500. Municipal property maintenance, $2,500. And police vehicle maintenance, $5,000. And speaking to this warrant article will be the chair of the select board, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So the top of the list is that $100,000 for road preservation. So I want to be clear that the increase, what appears to be an increase of $100,000 in the capital reserve fund, is actually offset by the fact that the road preservation fund has been reduced from 200,000. So there was a swap. So road preservation, which is, I think, overall less costly, and Emmett will correct me if I've got this wrong, has been reduced to the 100,000, whereas the highways and roads is getting more money because that's where more money needs to be spent. This was at the recommendation of the CIP. The technology fund is down from $15,000 last year to this year. Everything else is unchanged from last year, except the police vehicle maintenance is up $5,000 because that is part of, Steve, is that right? What will go towards paying for the cruiser?
Yes.
So overall, this section, the expendable trust funds, is down 1.04%.
Are there questions for folks on the expendable trust fund line, warrant 4? Seeing none, we'll move on to warrant article 5. Warrant article 5 reads to see if the town will vote to establish a contingency fund for the current year under the provisions of RSA 91:98A. 31:98A for unanticipated expenses that may arise, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,234 to put into the fund. This sum is this sum will come from the unassigned fund balance, and no amount will be raised by taxation. Any appropriation left in the fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. This is an individual warrant article, and a majority vote is required. And speaking to this item, and this is fairly new for the town of Webster, I believe, to see the contingency, but speaking and explaining it will be board member Dee Blake. Dee?
Okay, Norm, this is really for unanticipated problems that we hope we never have, but when we have it, we have at least this cushion. This year in 2020, we had to use money when we demolished the building on Dustin Road. It was falling down and all that, and Emmett took it down and flattened it all out, and it looks really nice. But that's where, because we had no other place to take the money from. So anything remaining above that cost is going to go back into the general fund. So we hope not to use it, but when we need it, we should have something like this, because we won't spend it if we don't have to. Believe me. And Emmett could probably say how much we used. I didn't write that down for that project.
That project was $8,000 to take that house down and to get rid of the material by the ton, and the tractor trailers was $8,000.
Thank you.
Are there questions or comments regarding this warrant Article 5? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to warrant Article 6. Article 6 reads to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to help offset the cost of the bond for funds to repair dam, passed at the Pillsbury Lake Water District meeting held August 5th, 2006. A majority vote is required, and explaining the history of the dam warrant article is Dee.
We had these big floods in 2006, and lo and behold, the dam disappeared, and so Pillsbury Lake was pretty dry. And that's the first time I realized that Pillsbury Lake is only like 4 feet deep up until except for where the dam is. Anyway, so to help them pay to put the dam back, the town has since voted, I think 1 year they didn't vote for it, but every other year we voted to give the town, the Pillsbury Lake, $10,000 because they are residents of the town too, and they needed the help. So hopefully we'll do it again this year.
And did you know when?
We have a couple more years to go. I think it's 2026. It's a 10-year bond, if I'm not mistaken.
Are there questions on Article 6? Emmett?
I'm sorry. I was talking to myself. I'm good.
But you were waving in a friendly manner. It's good.
Well, no, because not to correct Dee, but she said a 10-year bond, and if it happened in 2006, it would be 2016. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, 20 years.
So it must be a 20-year bond.
Yeah.
If it's going to be 26, not to.
No, I'm trying to make us all younger. Come on, Emmett.
Okay, dear.
Any other questions on the warrant article? Seeing none, we'll move on to warrant article number 7. This is a New Hampshire resolution for fair nonpartisan redistricting. And by petition of 25 or more eligible voters of the town of Webster, to see if the town will vote to urge that the New Hampshire General Court, which is obligated to redraw the maps of political districts within the state following the federal census, will ensure fair and effective representation of New Hampshire voters without gerrymandering. Additionally, these voters asked the town of Webster to urge the New Hampshire General Court to carry out the redistricting in a fair and transparent way through public meetings, not to favor a particular political party, to include communities of interest, and to minimize multi-seat districts. The record of the vote approving this article shall be transmitted by written notice from the Select Board to Webster's state legislators, informing them of the demands from their constituents within 30 days of the vote. And again, this article was received by petition, and the person who generated it and would like to speak to it tonight is Sally Embley. Sally, the floor is yours.
She's muted.
Sally?
There.
Sally,
I'm on.
we can
Okay,
hear you, Sally. Go for it.
great. I wanted to explain a little bit about I think everybody here knows what gerrymandering is. This is a way, now that the census has been taken or is about to be finalized, the number of congressional districts is decided and the maps are drawn outlining the districts. This can be done in a fair and equal way if you have an unpartisan decision, but because we have a legislature that makes the decisions, somehow this always ends up being a partisan issue. I've got to tell you that it isn't just Republicans. The state of Maryland also redistricts based on a Democratic decision. So any party that is running the legislature at the time of the census gets to decide where the districts are going to be drawn. In 2001, which was the earliest that I'm familiar with in New Hampshire, the Republicans were in charge, and it became so contentious. It was Jean Shaheen who rejected their drawing of the districts. It went to the Supreme Court of New Hampshire, and they made a terrible hash out of it. It lasted a whole year just going back and forth in the courts. So we don't want that. The next time was in 2011, and I went to a hearing where they were going to reveal what the districts were like, and no one, even the legislators, knew what the maps were going to be. It wasn't until 24 hours before the vote by the legislature that anybody got to see what they looked like. And we're living with that one now. We have a very strange executive council district that runs from Portsmouth to the Connecticut River. For one of the the districts is strung out just like a gerrymander, a long salamander in New Hampshire. So it does happen. The Open Democracy has been working on this issue for a decade, and they were trying to get a commission that would make a fair, balanced commission to draw the maps. And it went through the legislature 2 years in a row, and each time it was vetoed by Governor Sununu. And the Republicans are in charge, and I'm afraid it's going to happen again. So if we cannot have an independent districting commission, which was the usual thing that other states do, 21 other states have nonpartisan districting commissions that represent both parties, and there's open debate and people can see what the districts are going to look like. I'm worried that in this time around, we need the legislature to understand that we really demand a fair system, that where there's input from people, that it's an open process, we can get to see what kind of maps they're drawing. And this is a way, hopefully based on a statewide effort, to get more towns, up to 100 towns, saying that we want something fair and open and clear to everyone what the districts are going to be drawn like. And that's what this is all about. If we vote in Webster, we can send our message to the our legislators, and hope that they will obey our request. Does that make any sense?
That was a really good explanation, Sally. Are there questions for Sally or comments on this warrant article? David?
So my question is based on the end of this. The record of the vote approving this article shall be transmitted by written notice. So does that mean that we need to do a ballot to be able to give an accurate number, or is just a generic this passed by majority what would be transmitted or does not pass by majority?
This is not a ballot issue. We are adopting a resolution, I hope, after debating it at the town meeting. And the 30 days is hopefully will be timely enough because the census figures aren't really out yet. And they can draw the maps based on how the census has worked.
So the record of the vote does not need to include numbers of people voted for each.
In the past,
for
I
or
don't believe
against.
it has.
Okay, thank you.
I think David Nesbitt, is that you hiding behind Chris Shadler's name?
Yes, it is. Thank you, because I appreciate this old computer. Just wanted to thank Sally for a very clear explanation. Certainly in my teaching career, we spent a lot of time explaining gerrymandering and how, both parties have used it in the past to, essentially ensure their continued rules. And as Sally mentioned, it's gone back and forth to the courts, which of course eventually comes out to the taxpayers having to support those courts, and it's a really unnecessary expense. Certainly this could be just one real clear, easy way to say people want nice, clear explanations, bring in professionals, have it bipartisan, and then eventually it's something that we can all agree on, and we can maybe stop fighting for 2 seconds about something. So anyway, thank you, Sally. I was very pleased to sign your petition to support this. And with that, I'll mute again.
Thank you, David.
Are there other questions or comments?
Dave Collins.
Well, Sally, thank you for explaining that. I appreciate that. This is the first I've seen of it. And I'm not trying to be, argumentative here. I can simply say this: resolutions are a nice way to feel good, but I think people need to remember that the power is at the ballot box. We have a new representative in the district. If you don't want to see gerrymandering, the thing you need to do is get the 1,000 voters of Webster out. I don't think resolutions. I think it makes people feel good. I think gerrymandering happens on both political parties, and I don't really see where the town's resolution is really get any teeth. It's going to do anything, because it's just going to, if it's voted for, it's going to say this is what we want, and all they got to say is no, I'm not interested. The power's in the ballot box. We just had a general election where our state senator, our governor, our state representatives were elected. They're there to represent us. I think you should certainly reach out to them and do that. I personally think things like this are feel-good things. And gerrymandering happens. It's political parties. It's happened to Democrats before. The Republicans' power. To me, it just seems like this back and forth flip-flop, because the power in Concord has shifted. And I'm not in favor of resolutions like this. I think the power's in the ballot box. You elect your representative. If you're not happy with them, you can voice that. They're accessible to let them know what's going on. They should have forums in the town. If you're not happy with them, in 2 years, you vote them out. And I know that sticks to the district. But again, and knowing Webster, the other challenge I think we face in Webster is this: we are a small town among giants, and we always get carded with others. That's not going to change. To think that our state Senate district goes up to Lake Laconia, and Lake Laconia has the same interest that Webster has. No, they don't. I don't disagree. The problem is we're in a small community, and there's not enough of us to do it. And I just think no matter what they do, they're still going to throw us that way. And the best thing we can do is reach out to those representatives, be a pain, because they're there to represent us. So I'm sorry, not anything I support these resolutions. I think there's no teeth to it. I think it makes people feel good that they send it up, but I don't think there's any teeth. I think if you want to make a movement, you've really got to get to, your legislature, your governor to make a change. And again, that takes much more than this. These are things that I kind of, we don't have politics in town government. And, I think this is a different level, and I think it's outside of the realm of the town meeting personally, because we don't deal with state representatives that will ask them to come in on specific topics to support the town on a particular issue. But I just don't see this as really a necessary issue for the town. And that's just my personal feeling. But thank you for expressing, bringing this up, and certainly will come up at times, but I personally won't support it. So, but thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Can I respond?
You certainly may. I mean, this is to prepare us for the the actual voting day, Sally. So
Yes, well, this is really part of the problem, is that most people don't understand that this is how districting works. And my point would be that in two separate legislatures, a bill was passed that would have set up an independent redistricting commission, and this was bipartisan. It went to the governor, and in two separate years, the first time it had it didn't represent independents. They were just Democrats and Republicans on this commission that would have been appointed. The next time, well, the governor said, "Oh, that's not fair. We're going to have to change it." And he was very particular about what he wanted changed. And so the next year, the bipartisan legislature came through with another bill that addressed his concerns, and it was still vetoed. So I'm really concerned. I definitely agree that it's important for people to speak out. And you're right, we're just a small town. But unless the pressure is brought to bear and more people understand what the issues are, then maybe you'll get more support and we could change things. There are 21 other states and 3 more have joined recently to have an independent commission that would do this on a fair and nonpartisan basis. So I'm going to keep struggling and trying to make the point and maybe educating more people about the issue. Who else? Oh, David.
thank you, David.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment that regardless of whether you support or not this particular warrant article or the redistricting plan that it is trying to push, the thing that David brought up is that this is nice, but the representatives don't really look at this sort of thing that much. So while this is good, and we should absolutely have this because it was a petition that was presented to us to put on our warrant, and we can absolutely transmit how that vote happens in town, the best thing you can do is to contact your legislature, and no matter which side of this, whichever way you want to look at it. And just a plug for how to do that, go to the nh.gov website, and then under government, there is a Who's My Legislature link. And that will give you all of the contact information for everybody that is responsible for doing what you voted them in to do. And that's the best way to support or not support this.
If I could just dovetail off of David's comments. So because the legislature is meeting remotely and hearings are being held virtually, they've added a feature into the ability to comment on public hearings. And I would just encourage anybody, I mean, the time is now to participate and to have your voices heard. There are several education bills that I have, in the past, I would have had to go to Concord, park my car, pay the fee, go and find a hearing room somewhere and then sign in on a clipboard, either in opposition to the bill or in support of the bill. And now I can simply do it from my computer. I can sign in, I can say, I oppose this bill, I support this bill. I've done both today, as a matter of fact. It's an incredibly powerful tool. And if anything comes out of the situation that we've been in, a heightened awareness and greater participation would be a huge bonus to all of us. And so I would just urge everyone to consider those options that are there and use the tools, because they have emerged and are very different now. And so keep an eye on what's happening and definitely participate.
I would just like to say something, if I could.
Of course, Chris.
Fair and honest elections are something that really resonate in our country right now. I think no matter what party you're from, you want fair and honest and open elections, and you want fair and honest and nonpartisan decisions that are good for the people. I personally relish the idea of a town standing for something. And when I first moved to this town, well, it was a couple of years later, the town was going back and forth on whether we wanted a solar array next to the school. And I thought, what a great thing, what a fine thing. And it's out in the open and everybody can see that we are conscientious citizens in this wonderful town. Well, it's the same kind of thing with this. It's a nonpartisan effort for honesty, transparency, whatever have you, in how districting is done. And so I don't really see it as political. I see it as something that would be really, it would be necessary in these times to have a little bit more transparency and to have things not just because one party might be in power. This is about all of us. So that's just my say.
I would love to declare that the last word, because that's a great way to end, but I want to give one last opportunity if somebody wants to chime in. Very wise decision, Town of Webster. That's awesome.
Wow, I get the last word. That's great. My husband never lets me get away with it.
So that brings us to Warrant Article 8. And Warrant Article 8 is to transact any other business that may legally come before the meeting. And so are there other, other last words that people would like to make tonight before we close out the public hearing?
I would only add.
You may, Dave.
I'll be very quick. I would only say that it appears like when we went over the budget, there was concerns about stipends under the election officials. And I hope the select board will take that under advisement and come back with something and certainly inform your, you're basically the town employees, whether they're elected or employees, what's going on, then come at the last minute. And I know it's happened, but I would say that's something that's very important you do. So I hope you'll come and take that, and I'll look at future board meetings where you have that discussion. So when we get to the town meeting in April, hopefully, we can actually, that'll have been discussed and you'll have a response in regards to that for the rest of the town. Because I know only a small group attends the budget meeting and a lot more attend the town meeting. And for a lot of people, it's the first time they're hearing that. So I hope you'll be prepared on that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for tonight? I'm just going to do a quick summary. So the warrant articles will be further discussed and amended by the select board as they see fit. As the governing body, they are responsible for bringing this forward. The next time we see this, it'll have a recommendation following each one of the warrant articles. So they will be voting on these based on adjustments and feedback from tonight's public hearing. So thank you to everybody for your participation. Elections will occur for town offices on Tuesday, the 9th day of March. And I just want to pause for a second. If there are any candidates who are running for office who would like an opportunity to say hello and give a brief introduction to why they're running, this is the appropriate time in the meeting to make sure that we have that opportunity. So anybody running for office who'd like to speak?
Well, I happen to be running for office. So yes, I threw my hat in for another 3 years. There are things that I haven't finished yet. So, there's a lot of work on the salt shed, for example. I want to see the Clothespin Bridge completed. White Plains Road needs to be completed. Pond Hill Road, that's still something that's hanging over. There's a lot of work to be done. And I feel like when I came into the job, I was given the job of doing personnel policies, which, that was great to do. But boy, there's so much more to do. And I feel like I now know a lot more about how to do this job. So I'd like the chance to have another 3 years.
Thank you for stepping up again, Chris. Are there others who would like a chance to speak on their candidate?
I'm running again to fill out this 1-year term. So I've been a selectman many years ago. I was the first woman selectman, and I'm proud to help the town of Webster. I think I see the big picture. So I had to get off the school board. So now I'm playing with the town. Anyway, but I enjoy it.
Good.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Anybody else running for election who would like to speak? Okay, so the ballot will then be voted on Tuesday, the 9th day of March. And again, we have posted that the business meeting will occur on Saturday, April 17th, starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, immediately behind the elementary school. And we'll have a lot more details on how that's going to go, but we are envisioning a physically distanced, masked outdoor meeting. We'll have a PA system so folks will be able to hear, and we will then take care of the warrant article that's in front of us. And I just want to point out the select board, I think, has kept it to be relatively short because this is a unique year with the pandemic. And so hopefully this will be a meeting that we can have efficiently in that outdoor space. And just a reminder that there is a rain date of Saturday, May 8th, just in case we're not able to safely have the election on the 17th. And as asked earlier, there'll be a lot of communication. So I would ask people to follow the website, keep an eye on Facebook as ways that we will get word out about where we are as those dates approach. So at this time, I'm going to turn this back over to, I think it was Chris who started us off. So Chris, I guess you get to gavel us out and declare the meeting ended.
Hey,
Have a good night, everyone.
thank you
Thank you.
so much,
Good
Mike,
Nice
for your
job.
help.
Mike did a great job like usual.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to adjourn this public meeting at 8:02 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
And as we close that off, I want to quickly give a shout to anyone that has been looking at this and saying, you know, maybe I don't agree, or maybe I think I like what's going on. Thankfully, Dee has stepped up, and thankfully Chris is on the ballot again for us. It'll be a couple years before I am, but in order to do this kind of job, you need to know what's going on and how the job works. As the newest person on the board, I feel able to say that because I thought I knew a lot coming into this, having gone to almost every meeting I could possibly go to before I put myself on the ballot. And I learned a lot on the job as well. So I encourage anybody that thinks they want to do this to do it, but to show up to the meetings, to provide their input, to learn from what we're doing, so that they are fully capable to do that.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will be going off the air, but the board will stay together, correct?
Well, that would end the public hearing, but not
Right.
the public meeting.
Right. Okay, so goodbye to everybody, and thank you. Oh, you're welcome, of course, to stay on as well if you'd like to. It's so much fun. Okay, so why don't we work out something to address the issue that Sarah and Michelle raised. And so I was doing a little computing. I think that the figure of 37 for Michelle, the figure of 37,000 and some odd dollars had been discussed at some former point.
What was requested in her budget, which I had to go back and find, was 37,132.
Okay, that's approximately a 0.03% raise.
3%, yes.
Yeah. So what I was thinking that we might do, because it wasn't just Michelle that worked so hard. It was all four, all four of these people. And so I was thinking that because Michelle is the ringleader that Michelle is, can we do this as a, not as a raise, but as a bonus. And Dana, I don't know enough about the legalities of bonuses in situations like this. Emmett's shaking his head. Can we do it as a bonus? Because I had a figure for Michelle and a figure for Sarah and Nancy and Mike.
That is a select board decision.
Okay, so then I would ask the board then to consider providing Michelle with a bonus of $1,000. Because this election was an election to end all elections. I'm not suggesting that every presidential election into the future that people receive a bonus for their work. But we all know, we all have an idea how much more difficult this election was made by the circumstances. I'll just leave it at that. So if Michelle, if we can give Michelle a bonus of $1,000 and then provide $500 to everybody else, that would be $2,500 out of our budget. I know that we can find that money. The difference between the $36,050 that Michelle is currently receiving and the $37,132 is about $1,075, something like that. So just to round things out. So that's what I'm thinking.
Well, can we, I mean, I know Michelle makes more money anyway because she's the town clerk and all that, and she does a great job, but can we, I was thinking of across the board just for the people for the election, get a sum of money. Like Sarah and Nancy and who's the other girl too?
Well, Mike.
Yeah, Mike. Well, yeah. There's another. Who's the other girl? There's another girl too, isn't there?
Well, she's sort of a deputy person, I think, or I mean, when I think of the election, I think of the big four. There's so many people that are involved.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of volunteers too.
Yeah.
But this was a tough year, election year, that's for sure. So, but I just thought of maybe doing something just across the board for Michelle and Mike and Sarah and Nancy and whoever the other, I cannot remember. My brain is. I don't know.
I think that Michelle is an anchor. I think that everybody worked really hard, and I just
So I see Sarah, and I want to get to her in a
oh,
one
Sarah,
second.
sorry, I'm looking at my paper. Sorry.
My question, actually, I've got two questions.
Oh, wait a minute. Were you gonna I want to hear from Sarah.
There was
So-
only four.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
There was only four of us, Dee.
That's what I thought.
I don't know.
You mean you and Nancy and Michelle and Mike? That's it?
We are one.
You are one. Well, you wrote some pretty good stories for my paper, I have to say. So
No, I do have a new supervisor, but she wasn't with us last year.
okay, so you're supposed to have more.
Yeah, there's supposed to be three of us.
You scare them. That's the trouble.
Did you want to say something else, Sarah?
Nope, that was all.
Okay. Dave, go ahead. Sorry.
So my question, two questions would be, if we're doing bonuses, regardless of how much and who gets them, where does that come from in the budget, and which line would we need to adjust?
Mhm.
And the second question is, there are two line items. One is town clerk stipend, which is the one that was adjusted to stay flat. And then there is election wages, which is where supervisors, ballot clerks, and town clerk are all listed.
Mhm.
And then there's another one later on for moderator as well, that is a separate line item. when we're talking about this and saying for the election officials, I guess my question is this for the election capacity and only the election capacity? Or is this also for the town clerk capacity?
No,
because those
it's
are
purely
different things.
right. It's purely to recognize effort expended and successful result on this past election. Because Sarah was quite right in saying never in our living memories have there ever been an election quite like this that demanded such specific things, especially under conditions of COVID and everything. So that's
And
my answer.
turnout,
I'm sorry.
and a big turnout, a lot of voters.
Right. So that would be my answer to number 2. My answer to number 1 is, Dave, I would hope that you would have the answer to number 1 so you could so you could find $2,500 for us. Steve?
Well, I may have a small addition that you can probably get out of this. Looking through my lines, I could probably sacrifice $1,000 out of my part-time office's wages.
Oh.
I think that I can do that. That's not a problem.
Oh, that is so kind, Steve.
So that'll give you at least some of it.
And does that not cause a problem with the new the holiday policy?
No, I don't think it should. My part-time wages, I still had $12,000 remaining, and we're still short some part-timers. So I think even now, until I get at least some more up and running, that I'm going to have money left over in the long run. So I think I could sacrifice $1,000 out of that and still be okay.
Thank you.
That'll help a little anyway. I don't know how much it'll help you, but it'll help some.
Yes, it's a great help. Thank you very much.
Mike's got his hand up, Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the Mike.
Thank you. I still haven't figured out how to raise the virtual hand, so I'm just waiting. But if I may, so just speaking in capacity as moderator, I really appreciate the sentiment of a bonus, if you would, but I would politely decline that. I took this job on because I want to serve the town. We were able to, with some of the grant money that the town received, we were able to ensure that we had the extra hours in order to put into the election, and I put those in, and that's why I ran for this. To me, the question is different. It really is about the town clerk is the face of Webster, and Michelle is the person that we visit, at least once a year to get our cars registered, or multiple times a year, depending, the dogs and so forth. And there's a little bit of history here where I don't feel that Michelle's value has really it's been debated over a period of time in a variety of ways. I think we've landed in a good spot. And I just think this is an example where we need to continue to invest in a person who just goes above and beyond. She's a dedicated employee. To lose her from the town would be just a tremendous loss. And so I thank you, Chris, for the idea of a bonus, but if you were allocating some portion of that my way, I'd ask that you send it to the town clerk, because that's the right way to honor the employee and to make sure that we keep Michelle for many years. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But everybody, I want to recognize the efforts of Sarah and Nancy too, though, because you guys work so darn hard. So, and I feel, I want to say, Sarah, that I feel remiss that I didn't catch that on this. And I apologize to you. And I wish Nancy and Michelle were here. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. And I kind of feel, like Mike, that certainly a bonus is nice, but we did take advantage of grant money. We put in, like when I said before, we didn't put in all our hours. We didn't, but we put in most of them, especially for our training for this year. It's not really, for me, again, it doesn't matter. I don't care about a bonus. I care about Michelle being recognized for Michelle. So that's
Oh.
my thought too. I appreciate you wanting to recognize us. I don't know that that being said, if you sent me a check, I don't know what I would necessarily send it back.
Atta girl. Atta girl.
We worked awful hard this year. We really did.
Yes. You have worked awfully hard.
Mike deserves it very much too, because this was his first full year, and Nancy's too. Like both Nancy and Mike jumped in, for a crazy, crazy ride this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the select board knows that too. It's just really been something. So, so Dave and Dee, what do you think?
I have a question for, maybe it's Sarah here, or Mike, or both. But I briefly mentioned with Mike, and he told me that the stuff was hourly. And it sounded like that came out from Sarah, that this is all hourly for you as well, correct? And the whole team?
Yep.
Okay. Since we saw reductions in the amount on the budgets, were those reductions taking into account an expected hourly raise of any sort?
Mm-hmm.
They were. Okay.
Yes. So this year we only charge the town for town meeting and elections. We have a couple of other elections we need to do, school board and Pillsbury Lake, but the only one for town budget is town elections and meeting. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Wind me back there.
I was asking about the increase.
Yes, so the only other thing that's happening is that every 10 years on a 1 year, so 2021, there is what's called, it used to be called the purge. It is now called the checklist verification process.
Lovely.
Right? In which case, and my cat's visiting too, in which case we will have to spend extra hours this year that we wouldn't normally have to do. It's a secret process. Nobody knows how many hours or what this is going to be like. But we will have extra hours this year because of that we wouldn't normally have on an off year. But even still, that still does take into consideration an increased stipend.
Okay.
Your question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the original expectation that at least but I think the entire board had when we discussed all of this to start with, was that there was only one stipend that had been raised, and that doesn't appear to be the case. So
right.
I don't think it makes sense to then just point out, and I don't want to say penalize, but I don't think it makes sense to point out just one particular stipend in that case.
Correct. And it is an odd situation how we're all lumped together, but then there's parts that are broken off, and so maybe that's something in the future to look at and figure out. but we are all lumped together. We are one, Mike.
So where it says election wages, supervisors, and then below it says, well, supervisors, training, mileage, and supplies. Of course, that's going to be less. So underneath, for our proposed budget then of $3,885, is that supposed to cover? I assumed it would be covering all of you. It says supervisors, clerks, and town clerks. Town clerk.
Supervisor, ballot clerk, and town clerks. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, election wages.
Election wages.
Right. So that, yes, that's all of us, including ballot clerks, who are also paid an hourly stipend.
So when Michelle gave us her budget, I don't know if you were there that night, Sarah. I don't think so. Okay. When Michelle gave us her budget, were these the figures, Dave or Dee, you might remember, were these the figures that Michelle gave us?
To my knowledge, the only figure that was changed from what she gave us was town clerk stipend, which is the first line item in that budget set.
Okay. Okay.
So the others remained the same, and what we had said was they were going down. And so we didn't take into account at the time that there was actually a wage per dollar per hour increase up to go along with the reduction in expected hours. We just said, oh, less hours. So that's going.
So are you saying then, Dave, that the proposed budget for election wages will need to go up to accommodate that?
No. So what I'm saying, so election wages, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, because I don't know how your meeting went for exact percentages, but assuming that everybody uses 3% for everything, the election wages will have fewer hours expected, but each hour will be 3% more valuable.
Uh-huh. That's my understanding.
And so the town clerk stipend, which is the first line item, had also suggested that 3% increase. But we thought that that was the only stipend out of everybody's that was getting increased, and had said that, well, we should either increase everybody's stipends or nobody's to keep things fair. And so we basically not increased anybody's. And unfortunately, she wasn't told, like, there's a communication problem that's separate from the actual budget item, but, you know.
Were any elected officials, other than, no offense, you guys, told?
Say that again. I didn't hear what she said.
She asked if anybody other than the select board had been told about the change. As the low guy on the board, I wasn't expecting to have to tell anybody. I apologize profusely that I didn't make sure that that was communicated, because I've done that for other things as well, just to make sure, because communications are weird now with all new employees and a pandemic.
Yeah. And it seemed like every time we met, we did something to the budget. We just kept altering it and altering it, you know, to come up with a bottom line that would be passable to the townspeople. So yeah, it's just been that kind of a year. So I would recommend that we, do we have enough information to sufficiently change or fairly change the stipends for the election wages in our proposed budget?
The election wages portion was already the way that they wanted it.
Okay.
So it's the first line item, which is town clerk stipend.
Yes, yeah.
Unless I'm just mistaking what you're wanting to do.
This, if we, I don't know exactly how to deal with this. The amount of money, that we would be raising, essentially giving Michelle a raise by, would be $1,075, something like that. And I guess we can do that, but I feel like I want to recognize above and beyond what she has done. And so without going above and beyond, if we just, what, something I guess that we can do is we can elevate the stipend that Michelle gets by 3%, which would elevate her to 3,700, 121 or 132, whatever you said it was, Dave. And then I would really like to provide her with a recognition separate from that. And so, if Steve is willing to pitch in 1,000, that right there is a wonderful recognition to come from the town. I wonder if there isn't any other place in the budget that we could find, some money for each person. Mike has declined, and Mike, I'd really like to, I'm sure you could use some money, take your family out to dinner at some non-COVID time. I don't know.
Deserves it.
What was that, Sarah?
Deserves it.
Who's upset?
No, it says he deserves it.
Mike.
Oh, he deserves it. Oh, I didn't
He
hear
so
that.
deserve it. He so deserves it.
I think you all deserve it. And that's, I mean,
Yes, but it's our job too. I mean.
well,
yes,
yeah, it's Michelle's job too. So,
Right. But Michelle is just,
So my take on this, and I'm going to kind of just lay it out here. Chris wants to acknowledge the above and beyond, and that's great. And I think that is a worthwhile discussion for all of the election officials, the other town hall employees like Dana, people like Emmett and the fire crew and the police chief and all of them. Everybody has gone way above and beyond because of what's been happening. But then the other side of that is the normal town clerk stipend and that amount. And your original thought of, well, let's just make up the amount with a bonus is interesting, but I think it kind of skirts around what is going on with the stipend. And so I don't think it is fair to take a group where everybody is acting together, acting the same, and say, well, one of the 4 or 5, however many people happen to get there, that's the one that we're not going to treat the same as the others.
Well, I think that
So-
I think you have to recognize effort and everything above and beyond. I mean, while she was also doing the election stuff, she was also our town clerk. And during the worst of the COVID, she was there at her job. So besides the fact that she did what she did for her regular job, she pulled off an amazing election. So I don't know.
I just want to, I'm not saying, one or the other or anything like that. I just want to point out that they're actually 2 separate things. That's all. And if you're looking at recognizing people, yes, Michelle definitely went above and beyond. So did Mike, so did Sarah, so did both chiefs. Those are the kinds of things that we have a town full of people that like to go above and beyond to make sure the town is taken care of. That's why we have these people. That's why we love them all. And that's why our town works. And so I just want to point out that, like, acknowledging and saying one thing, like, okay, only Michelle or only the elections people went above and beyond, that I think would be a mistake. Whereas I don't think it would be a mistake to make her stipend matching with what all of the rest of those same officials' stipends are like.
When
I
you
think
say,
that would be appropriate.
okay, so just give her a 3% stipend raise.
I think that would be the most appropriate way of resolving this, assuming that we all want to actually give her more money.
So are we giving 3% to everybody? Mike?
It sounds
and
like,
everybody?
yeah, it sounds like the wages, and again, Mike or Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like the line item for election wages already accounts for a 3% per hour wage raise for them. Is that correct? Sarah's nodding her head yes.
And I have to be honest, I don't have a clue. I mean, I didn't put anything in. You know, there was a point in time where the moderator's stipend was put in with the other election officials, and then last year it got separated out, so it's now in its own line. I don't know. I show up, I sign a timesheet, and I get a check, and I'm not too worried about it, to be very, very frank about it. To me, this is about the clerk's salary. You know, it's interesting. It's in as a stipend and not a salary, but then it says the moderator has a salary, which is more of a stipend.
Right.
You know, I'm confused by the lingo that we're using. This is really not a stipend. This is her position. And it's the wages that she has for performing that. And, you know, as a important part of the town who, by the way, you know, there's a tremendous amount of revenue generated and generated accurately. When I was treasurer, you know, she has to account very carefully for the amount of revenue that she brings in for the town, probably second to the tax collector himself. So again, I don't see it as a stipend. I see it more as a salary for the position she's elected to perform.
Well, you know, as you pointed out, Michelle got a pretty hefty raise at her other job for the police department, and you know, I think she deserves every single penny that our town can give her. And you know, I think that anybody that volunteers deserves more than we're getting paid. You know, I mean, I think of the hours we put in this summer. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But it's the job. You know, there's ups and downs to everything. But we've been asked to distinguish Michelle. And so, you know,
Now, I thought, was Sarah, are you still there? Is she still there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see her. Now, what was the beginning conversation we had with you? I'm trying to think. You thought, well, you do deserve more money, but now you're changing your tune.
No. Ours was already accepted through our wages. It's very confusing, quite honestly.
Well, I'm confused. So straighten me out, will you?
So to look at it, you know, is the town clerk So the town clerk has a stipend. But then in the election wages, it's also supervisors, ballot clerks, town clerk. I'm not sure, and then I don't understand why the moderator was removed from all that, because that was how it all used to be.
I have no idea. I have no.
Does by far and away does the majority, because she does the absentee ballots. You know, there's a whole other part that we haven't. I mean, I learned about it this year because we had to help her, but we don't have anything to do with that. She takes care of that whole thing. So I don't understand the breakdown of everything. I'll be honest.
I wonder if this has to be done this way by the state.
It doesn't. You know what? I remember when Leslie and Nancy Bates tackled this and things were moved around. This was.
It doesn't have to do with like her. Yes, I remember that too, Chris. This doesn't have to do with her two different jobs for Michelle's.
Mm-hmm.
This is about.
I will say that we matched the line items to the way they were last year, and that's why you see them this way.
Right.
Why and how they got that way last year was part of whatever Leslie's reorganization was with Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I.
Oh, Nancy Bates, you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I comprehend that process, but I do not understand why. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
And I don't want to like poke at this too much because I'm afraid like I don't want to hurt Michelle in any way here. But it's organized strangely in that I don't completely understand.
I agree with you, Sarah. And I think that probably after tonight, we'll have a little, meeting with Dana. I think maybe taking that up perhaps on Monday night and having another look at this might be a good idea. Just to try to understand, or maybe after town meeting is over, maybe we should look at how the town report is presented so that it's a little bit clearer in this way. And this was not your doing, Dana. This was sort of handed down.
No, give me a chance to do my own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, well, Dee, how do you feel about Dave's proposition here? I think, Dave, what your proposition is, I think what is spurring your proposition is the fact that other employees might feel upset about the fact that a certain group of people were singled out, were recognized for their efforts. And I don't know that would happen, but I guess it might.
Well, my point was actually the opposite of that, in that you've got a group of folks that are all elections and they all got the raise that they were expecting in the stipend, except for Michelle. With the town clerk position. And so it's like she's being singled out as opposed to someone pointing out, oh, they're getting special favors. It's actually the opposite. It's like, why are we penalizing that position when the rest of them that are doing similar work but not as much of it are getting that? And I don't say that lightly. Sorry if it comes across as not as much work, but I'm just talking hours. That it singling out Michelle as the only one to not get that stipend increase out of that group when they are, as a group, working together on the same stuff, that doesn't seem right.
Well, I wouldn't
agree.
I certainly wasn't suggesting that.
Right.
I don't understand.
Right. So that's where the suggestion of the increase of the stipend comes from, to go to the same 3% that the rest of them have, which we didn't think they had.
So who decided on 3% for the election officials, who decided, who came up with that? Did somebody ask for it, or did Michelle figure it out, or?
Michelle.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, now I understand.
That we
Michelle, I'm sorry, what'd you say there, my dear? Speak
Michelle?
loudly. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, better. You got to be loud like me.
Michelle recommended that we put that in for our hours.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And that's it. Now I understand. Now I understand. I didn't understand that. So yeah, let's give Michelle 3% raise on her stipend. Okay.
Well,
I
it
think
makes
that's
more sense.
absolutely. And that's a really good solution to this problem. So thank you all for your forbearance for me not quite being quick enough to understand exactly how things are. So that then Michelle's stipend would be 37,132.
That
Is
was
that
what they requested, yes.
okay? So Dana, can you make sure that's changed?
I have it.
Okay, terrific. Okay, that being accomplished, why don't we begin at the beginning of the warrant and vote on each one of these warrant articles. So
No, I just have, before we get to that, what about Mike Jenny? He didn't get any type of a raise. Is he happy with
His hourly portion is figured in with all of that with theirs.
Oh, it is. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm sorry.
And
Break my brain out.
Yeah. So my question on that, based on, I know that all of the police are salary and they've gotten their stuff. My question is over with Emmett, actually, who thankfully is here. How do the stipends and stuff work specifically for the fire department? And when or how was the last time they changed?
Dave, I'm sorry. That's sort of a little bit beyond what we're trying to get done tonight. Is that something that we can talk about at another meeting?
Sure.
I just, I don't know why, we have to go into that tonight because it's a long, could be a long discussion. Is it, why do we need to talk about it tonight?
Well, so for example, when we brought Emmett in to talk about the budget, Emmett was very clear that he wasn't asking for any increases, but he was hopeful that the departments would get increases as the rest of the town did, if that was something that we deemed the town was going to get. And so I think that it is appropriate to have the same discussion for how the fire department, et cetera, end up with that stipend. And maybe it was just increased a large amount right before I got here, and so it's already accounted for. Maybe it wasn't, but having some picture and some clarity on that, I just want to make sure that we're actually being fair across the town when we're recognizing we're basically using that standard thing as the recognition of people in harm's way going above and beyond.
One of the guiding principles for this year's budget is to try to keep things extremely tight. The whole issue of stipends at the fire department is a whole thing. It's something that we spend this ongoing sort of discussion, and it's a volunteer fire department where people are getting stipends. So automatically it's a contradiction in terms. So I would prefer to table this, and when we have passed or not passed this particular budget, then we can look again. And maybe this is something that, Dave, you can work with Emmett on and figure out you know, how to keep things fair for all the firefighters, because they certainly deserve it. But at this point, if we were to go back through and look at that now, I'm not sure we would get our budget completed in time.
No, that would be a long. Emmett, did you ever get any COVID money for the fire department as any type of a COVID bonus or anything?
No,
You didn't? Because I think my daughter Beth, I think maybe because they're normal, they're regular firefighters. I think they all got something.
okay, you are right. Yeah. Each one of the EMTs, I don't have the paperwork in front of me. We all did get something. You're correct on that.
The COVID, something from the COVID thing.
Yeah, you're 100% right. We did. We got, I think the firemen might have got $300 and the EMTs might have got $600.
Yeah, something like that. So I would think we should, if we want to do the fire department, that should be like, I would think after town meeting, maybe we should really sit right down there and discuss it all with you. What do you think?
Let's get through this year.
Yeah, right.
Where we're at. Okay.
Right.
Amen, Emmett.
The folks at the firehouse, they have to love it to do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of them aren't there for the money. A lot of them, the stipend that they do get at the end of the year doesn't even put the gas in the car to come back and forth to the firehouse. But
wouldn't you be want to do it like next year after sit down and we can all go piece by piece, take some time, because I know you have so much time. You try to fill up your time for you.
And you folks have worked so hard on the budget, and I really thank you, Dave, because that was my words. I'm going to hold my line there. If everybody else goes up 3%, then I plan on that, not only on the fire wages, but on the highway part of it as well. But I held the highway the same, and let's just keep the fire the same it is, and we'll get through this, and then we'll revisit it. But thank you, Dave, for
recognizing everybody.
For
absolutely
what I had said. So let's just move on. And I'm going to say something, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Okay? And we're all praising one person because they're on top, and I praise her too. But I'm going to tell you all, a leader is only as good as the folks they have underneath them that are helping them along to get where they're at. Mm-hmm. Like the police chief, he's got people under him that make
absolutely.
And it's the same way. It's no different than taking care of the roads. If I didn't have the people behind me to help me through this, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And it's the same at the firehouse. It's the people that are under you, and you put the right people in the right place that make you who you are, because I can't do it alone. And
absolutely.
And I praise them all. And just because you're on top doesn't mean that you've done it all. It's the people behind you. And I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings, but that's how Emmett Bean feels. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emmett. I think everybody here agrees with you.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, Dave and Dee, are you ready to take a vote on each one of these warrant articles?
Yep.
I'm sorry, Steve, are you saying good night?
I'm saying good night.
Oh, good
Unless
night,
you,
Steve.
unless you needed me for something, I'm
Nope.
out of here.
And
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to say good
Bye,
night
Mike.
if you don't need me anymore.
Good night. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Okay.
Night,
Thank you.
thanks.
Good night. Okay, Dana, how do I have to read each article as a motion? Or
No.
can I move to,
I think that you could just refer to them by the number of the article.
I do
okay,
too, because on this,
Okay.
I just made bring the school board, but you didn't have to read it.
Yeah.
You just,
okay,
And are they all motions? Or is it just us saying what we're
just
going to
if we accept it, right, you don't have to have a motion.
good.
So
If
this
we
is,
accept it, if all three select people accept it, then it would be selectmen, three.
Right,
That's all. It's just, you don't have to have a motion, I don't believe.
okay. Then article number 2,
I
I
I,
will be for
as
it once
amended.
yes.
as amended.
And to be clear, those amendments were, is it just the increase for the town clerk stipend? Or is it an increase in the town clerk stipend and the $1,000 decrease in the police part-time wages?
I don't think that we have to decrease the part-time wages.
Okay.
That's my
I
feeling.
just wanted to clarify which
Yeah.
way it was amended.
Yeah,
Okay, so the amendment is only to increase the town clerk stipend as mentioned. So yes, then sounds good.
your I, D,
I, yes.
Okay. All right, so the select board recommends 3-0. On article number 3,
I,
Aye,
okay.
which for anyone following along was capital reserve funds.
Right. Article number 4 on
expendable
trust. On
Aye.
expendable trust
Aye.
funds. Aye, thank you very much. You guys are getting ahead of me here. Number 5,
around,
Contingency?
yeah,
I'd say.
Aye.
Okay. On number 6,
Pillsbury Lake?
I,
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, and we don't have to take a vote on the petition.
Yeah, I don't
No.
think we should be recommending or not recommending for the petition because
No.
it's not a financial anything.
No. So, and there was no other business. So I think we have concluded our budget hearing.
aha.
We already concluded the budget hearing, but now we know what we're going to put
Really
up.
concluded.
Yeah, we're really concluded, yeah.
Really.
Yes, you really are.
So good job, everybody.
Okay.
Dana, so I think that one of the lessons learned is that as we're preparing the budget next year, we should have the budget available at a certain point that's maybe a month prior to the hearing in a draft form. So if we can put that out on the website as a draft with maybe a, I don't know if this is really, I don't know what DRA would say about this, but, with a note that says, this is a work in progress, which everybody knows anyway. Thoughts on
I would
this?
say that we tried to do that when we actually probably would have done that if it weren't for the totaling of the police cruiser. So I think we were actually ready to do that as far as the posting, because we pretty much had everything buttoned up then, and then we had the police cruiser.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of making it available to townspeople, I think we kept it among ourselves and we should have gotten it out there. And
If I might say something, I think that that's a good idea. Obviously, it is dependent on when you're through with the budget. I also think it would be very beneficial for department heads to have more of an ongoing input and have them maybe when you've reviewed their budget. I mean, they come in, they present it to you, but maybe have another appointment with them. This is what the board feels. And
Okay.
so that, and again, trying to improve communications. I feel badly I didn't mention that to Michelle, because I really should have. But I think that having department heads involved is a very helpful thing. So I guess that's just my 2 cents worth, but.
No, that's correct. You're right. You're right.
I think that's a really good idea. And we've never done that, actually. They've come in and presented their budget, and then the board just works away on it. I think the budget has been made available as a work in progress to them at an earlier point, not as a finished thing. So I think maybe a combination of what you're suggesting, and also just making sure via email that the budget gets sent out to them so that they can see the entirety of it.
I agree. I think that's a good idea.
Yep. Is there anything else we could have done better?
So following along with that, as far as process, obviously the big problem that we had here was communicating to Michelle, because we could have caught this, seen it, whatever.
Yes.
Had the discussions earlier. What was pointed out to us was, as a board, was that we had received the department budgets. We had not accepted the department budgets, which is when we say, yep, that's okay, that's what we're agreeing with. And so we should probably just add in a section for, okay, maybe we talk about it, maybe we suggest changes, but come in to talk, and this is what we're accepting. So there's actually a final, like a formalized process for that.
Yeah,
and
no,
that
I
would have
think so.
fixed this, I think.
I think so. So you're really reiterating what Dave was saying. Just, you want to make it into a formal process. I think that's a really good idea. And
I was reiterating what Dana said, not Dave.
I mean, I'm looking at you, and it's almost 9 o'clock. I'm getting witchy.
That's okay. I don't have any identity issues.
It's both D's, whatever.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by D's.
Yeah,
I'm surrounded by D's.
That's right.
Yes, so.
Well, I think it went well. All things considered, I think it went well. And Dana, thank you for your work on the budget.
I enjoy working on the budget, and I guess this year was it's every town does it a little differently. And I wanted to see how it was done here, and I think it went really well. I've never been at a public hearing for a budget that's been online, so that's an education.
Yeah. I think it worked great, though.
I think it really worked well. I think people had, I don't know if you would have had more perhaps if it had been the traditional way. Oh, you don't think so?
Not necessarily. Attendance is usually horrible.
Really?
The budget hearing
yeah,
has
the
like
budget
nobody.
hearing.
The town meeting gets a bunch, but usually the budget hearing has very few.
Well,
So,
I think everyone has a part in the budget, and I think that communication's the hardest thing that I think any of us do.
Yeah,
but I'll
it's
put
hard.
my soapbox away because my wife just went by giving me a look. But
Just agrees.
yeah, that wasn't the look.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway, all right. I am ready to adjourn this. Oh, wait a minute. We need to I would like to make a motion on something, if you all don't mind. This is not on the agenda, but we're all here together. And Dan Moran needs to be reappointed to the Conservation Commission as its chair. And so I would like to recommend that Dan Moran be appointed to the Conservation Commission as the chair. And I think it could be a reappointment because he only had I think he was only on for 1 year and that has come and gone. So he needs to get reappointed.
Was this Conservation Commission or was it the refuge?
Oh God, it was Transfer Committee.
Yeah.
Right, you're right.
Russ and I have put that on the agenda for Monday.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we had done that. And as far as the other positions that may be expiring this year, I like to bring them to you all at once. And after I talk to people and verify that they wish to be reappointed. But again, that's just my suggestion.
That's a good idea. But
Sally, I just want to finish this. Sally called me this afternoon and asked me if we could do that for Dan. There's some reason why, and I think it has to do with a committee meeting that's up and coming.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't actually appoint a chair. We put them on the committee and then they vote chair, right?
It wasn't even about that. It was about the transfer committee. So it was reappointing him for the transfer committee. It has a different name now though, right?
It's the refuse something committee.
Oh, for God's sake.
I know. I thought it was, I can't even say it, but yeah.
Refuse and recycling or something like that. The trash committee.
Yeah.
We know what you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, would it be a big deal to okay it for tonight and then he can go get appointed by Michelle? Well, is tonight Thursday?
Yes.
So, yeah, so he could go over on Monday. I think I think the reason that Sally called me is because she wanted us to get it done as soon as possible.
Yes, that's not a problem. So is that a motion?
Well, I can move. Yeah, I can move to have Daniel Moran reappointed to the refuse and recycling committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's provided that like he's actually, yeah. I'll just say aye. It'll be simple.
Wow, Dave. Right. Way to go, Dave. You kept it simple.
I was going to say, we should say provided, whatever documentation, et cetera, because we're supposed to see that first, aren't we?
Well, if he's being reappointed, I mean, he's already been on the committee.
Yeah.
Right. But like when I was going back on the planning board, for example, I had to sign a new paper.
Oh, I think that's different for the planning board. This isn't a board.
Are you thinking of the paper that comes out of the clerk's office that you sign? Yeah. Usually we would do that after because, we often might not know who you're going to appoint. I mean.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think it's probably just as well rather than prepare something and then have them not appointed, even though that's not a huge deal, but.
Okay, sounds good.
So are you eyeing?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. All right, I'm done now. I have to stop thinking.
We had so I brought it up to Dana and Chris, I think you got this as well, that we wanted to talk about the topics that we should put in the select board portion of the report.
Yes.
The town report.
Yes.
And so my expectation or understanding on that was that it was to be things that we had completed during the year in general.
I'm still at a meeting.
Yeah, it's basically. Hey, T, can you mute yourself?
Yep. Okay. Bye.
Sorry, my
There we go.
daughter was calling me.
That's okay. You can mute yourself though when the telephone rings,
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I was.
and then it's not a big deal. Yes, so it's our accomplishments.
Yeah, so I wanted to, you mentioned wanting me to write something about the police department server, and that's been brought up a couple times, whether it's you or Dana, et cetera. And I'm more than happy to write something on it, but we haven't completed anything on it yet.
I
So
know, I
don't think
know.
that's an accomplishment to write about.
Yeah, okay. All of the technology, all of the stuff with Mainstay that was supposed to have happened in 2020, none of that happened.
No.
Okay, we won't even mention that. Okay, so you don't have to write about that, Dave.
We've been trying, and like I know that Phil got another quote from them, and we asked questions about the quote, and it's been crickets.
Yeah.
We haven't
Okay.
had anything back.
Okay.
So.
And so, what I thought that I would write about is our effort during the COVID crisis, basically. Talk about how the work of the town clerk continued all the way through the COVID crisis. And, it's just an incredible thing. And I thought, by the way, just between the five of us, that it was really ironic that we all know that the town report is going to be dedicated to the people who ran the elections. So they're going to get a really wonderful notice. And I've got to actually come up with a blurb on each one of these people. And so I've asked Marty Bender if he would call me, which he hasn't yet, so he can tell me wonderful things about his wife, Nancy. And then, I think maybe, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to find this information out without the spouse learning about it. But so anyway, it would be COVID. It would be the hiring of new staff.
That took no time at all. I mean, we just breezed right through that.
What?
Trying to find staff. That didn't take any of our time at all.
No, I know. It was amazing. Let's see. What else? Well, I mean, we've, our Roy, Roy has been really helpful as our health inspector. So I've got to remember to recognize him.
Do we get a section of the report that's like the health inspector's section or no?
I'm not sure.
Because I think it was, if there isn't, then it makes sense for us to do that. If there is, then I think that can be covered in his own report.
Yeah, I don't have a book here, but I'll look. Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably worth. It's probably worth mentioning that Bianca had to resign and that Dee was able to accept the position.
Right.
And I don't know whether the part about having to step down as a trustee to accept it should be in ours or the trustees section, which I think there's one.
Yeah.
So, but there should be something about that in at least one of the two sections.
I'm going to make sure I put it in ours. And then whatever
eventually, yes. I say eventually I'll get to be a trustee.
Well, you were, even
2
if
years
not
in
for
a
very
row. Yeah, one meeting. Yeah.
We're certainly, we're moving ahead on the bridge. So we, work has continued on that. Dana,
Salt
what?
shed. Salt
Oh my
shed.
God, the salt shed. How can I forget that? Dana, what was it you and I talked about? What were you gonna try to put together?
Well, we had talked about the explanation of what different lines mean in the operating budget.
Oh,
Is there-
yes, that's right. Remember
Yeah.
that part that Leslie did, which people loved. They loved it.
Yeah, I think it's a
Where-
good idea. And she did a good job with that. I might make a few changes, but
Yeah. So in the notes to the proposed 2021 budget,
right.
You're basically going to annotate the budget.
Yes, I'll go through the sections like Leslie did, explain what the purpose of the different lines are.
Perfect. So if anybody thinks of anything else that I should put in here, please drop me a note.
Okay, I'll think about it.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to, can I?
Worth mentioning that we
not-
have the, I think it's probably worth mentioning that we created the new solar subcommittee. I don't think we've got a
Yeah,
section.
that's a good idea.
Like, I
yeah.
don't think that it warrants a section for the solar subcommittee because we didn't really do much last year. We're kind of waiting to really get going with it. But I think it's definitely worth mentioning that we created it and it exists and people can find it.
Totally. And the solar array. I mean, that's a huge deal.
Yeah,
So
we should explain paying off the solar array.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking of that solar array.
Yeah, there's two now. Well,
right.
There's one array that we have, and then the other thing, yes.
So, okay.
Do we want to mention anything about having new town council?
Nah. Nobody cares.
I mean, it can be a thing like we're saving money because it's a lower per hour and they've provided better, more prompt service or that sort of thing.
I don't want to do anything to sort of throw a shadow on Upton and Hatfield. And I'm too afraid. I know what you're saying, but I'm too afraid it would look like that. And people in this town have been sort of tied to some people have been tied to Upton and Hatfield.
Oh,
so
I did not know
I want to just
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. They'll be suing us for slander or something,
Right.
They're attorneys.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, keep thinking and email me if you come up with something. And Dana, tell me what my deadline is on that.
It was yesterday, Chris. No, if I could have it by the end of next week, Russell's going to kill me, but if you could have it by the end of next week, that would be good.
I'll say midweek.
Yeah.
And then Russell.
Yeah, and then.
Oh, it's fine. I was going to kill him anyway. It's all good.
Russell gave me the speech about he would have had it all done by now, but.
Oh, no, I did not.
Nothing like ending a meeting with some good laughs. That's
Yeah.
good.
Okay. So I'm about to adjourn this meeting. Okay, I'm going to do it before Dave says anything. I've moved to adjourn the meeting at 9:13.
Anything.
Oh.
That Dave made it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.